Today, we're going to be taking a look at this, the new Lite kit from Hdzero. This kit consists of the new VTX, which allows voltages down to as low as 1S, as well as the new Lite camera that weighs just 1.5 grams. What we'll do in this video is walk you through some of its features and capabilities, and then I'll show you some flight footage from this on aircraft, including this, my Modular 6. Now, just to be clear up front, Hdzero have sent me this for free, but that has not influenced my opinion on this product. As always, I will give you my thoughts at the end as I would with anything else. Anyway, let's get on with it and let's take a look at what you get in the kit first of all. So the box I've got here is the full Lite kit. This retails for $99. It consists of the new Lite VTX, the new 1.5 gram camera, and includes all of the other accessories such as the MIPI cable and an antenna as well to get you up and running. So everything in this kit is what you need aircraft side to be able to fly with Hdzero in the smallest and lightest possible way. If we lift the lid on the box, the first thing you'll find is some stickers with Hdzero and DiviMath, and then below that you have the new Lite VTX and the new camera. If we carefully remove these and just pop them to one side a moment, you'll then find underneath these you have another little cardboard separator, and then you have this little bag which contains all the additional accessories, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment. Jumping in and taking a closer look at the new Lite VTX first of all. Now, this is an all-new model with a voltage input range of 1S up to 3S. It supports RF output of 25 and 200 milliwatts, and it has smart audio built in as well for control and configuration. Its size is 32.5 by 32.5 with a 25.5 mounting pattern, and it weighs just about 4.5 grams without the RF shielding installed, or about 7 grams with the RF shielding installed. It has antenna retention. You can see here there's a slit either side, which we'll take a look at in a second, and the board is just 4 mils deep when you remove the shielding as well. Flipping it over to the other side, you can see we have our UFL antenna connection with that little slit on either side, allowing you to pop a cable tie on to retain the antenna. We have our MIPI connector over here for the camera, our firmware update port, and then if I spin it around, you can see we have all our I/O located down the bottom. So we've got ground, voltage, smart audio, as well as transmit and receive pads for connecting to our flight controller. Now, as I mentioned, this VTX weighs about 7 grams with the shielding installed. However, this can easily be removed. You simply give it a gentle tug and you will see that it unclips on either side of the board. There's some little retainers that hold it in place. You simply give it an unclip and it will be removed. It doesn't act as a heatsink, so there's no thermal compound, and it doesn't actually touch the tops of the chips. It is simply RF shielding, and you can remove it off both sides of the PCB if you wish, allowing you to get the weight down as low as possible when using it on smaller aircraft. The nice thing is, if you're going to fly this board on a larger aircraft, you can leave the shielding in place because it will offer some additional protection. However, if you do want the lightest possible setup, you can remove it, and it also takes the depth of the board down to about 4 mils maximum. Something else to mention on this new Lite board is that it uses a smaller firmware update port than we've seen on other models, and they actually include a little adapter with that in the pack, and that's what helps get that depth of the board down to that 4 mil. They also include little mounting isolators for going on the board as well if you want to soft mount it, but you can hard mount it if you want to. And other than that, it pretty much looks like a Hdzero VTX as we've seen in the past. It has everything you would expect, the two ASICs, we have our UFL connector, we have our MIPI connection, and then we have our inputs and outputs down here. Next, moving over from the VTX, over to this new camera. Now, this is the real special part of this system. This camera weighs just 1.5 grams. Its size is 14 by 16 mil by just 11 mil deep. It has a field of view in 4 by 3 mode of 84 degrees and 65 degrees in 16 by 9. This camera is based off the Micro V2, which means it does have that option for switching between 4 by 3 and 16 by 9, and that would make it a native 4 by 3 camera as well. On the back, you pretty much just have the MIPI connector, and that really is it. Now, it is incredible just how small this camera is on this system, but the picture quality that you actually get from it, we'll take a look at that a little bit more in the video as it goes on, but it really is impressive to see just how small they've been able to shrink everything down. If I just bring in the rest of the accessories that you get with it, as I've said, we have our rubber isolators, we have our little firmware update conversion board, which just takes it from this much smaller size up to the normal size. We have some cable ties, some additional wires, and they do have both a MIPI cable included, nice and short for connecting on smaller aircraft, and this little whoop style antenna as well. The real impressive thing about this kit is if you wanted to go for the lightest possible setup, those items there, you can see without the shielding, comes in at around 7.5 grams in total. So you're able to get this system down to an absolute minimum depending on what application you want to use it with. Now, the first aircraft I built with this system was this, my Beta FPV 95X. I used this as my initial test platform, and we'll walk through some footage now just to give you an idea of how it looks. I'll be honest, I have had some vibration issues on this frame, and I ended up custom mounting a bracket for the front, but there is still a little bit there in the footage, and it was all going well until, well, I'll show you what went wrong with this a little bit towards the end of that bit of the video. So let's take a look first of all. Now, you will see in the footage that there is a lot of vibration or jittering. This is something I have had with this aircraft from the very day I've had it. There has been literally no amount of tuning that has allowed me to get it out. This was just some very basic flights flying around the trees in an area. There was a little bit of wind, nothing dramatic, but still enough to push the aircraft around a bit. But it was just a test to be able to see how the camera performed. Nothing spectacular, and the one thing that was clear from the tests is that this aircraft still has some major issues, as you can see here in the footage. Here again, you can see the vibration or jitter that I'm getting on the aircraft. Now, this isn't PID jitter or vibration from the PIDs being too high. It is something that the aircraft's done, and in the end, I've come to the conclusion it's a problem with the gyro. There isn't black box logging, unfortunately, on this aircraft, so I haven't been able to take a closer look. But basically, no matter what I did, there was no way of actually making this disappear. Now, whilst I was testing this camera, I was also doing some tuning on the aircraft as well, and it was all going okay, trying to get some of this out, thinking that it was a PID issue, and it was going okay until, well, this happened. At the time, I wasn't sure if it was an ESC failure or a motor, but it turns out it was actually the motor. We burned a coil. I'm going to blame Chris Rosser for this one because I was using his tune. So I decided it was time for an upgrade or a downgrade in size, and I installed the full kit onto the Modular 6. Now, this is obviously going to add some weight, but it is a demonstration that you can even install digital FPV onto 1S aircraft of this size. I did some initial test flights in the workshop, just moving it around a little bit in here just to show you that it is working and just to check everything was doing what it should be. This isn't particularly the best environment because there's basically no space in here, but it allowed me just to push it around a little bit, just make sure that it is doing what it should be doing, pushing it through some holes until I inevitably came up against an obstacle, so it was time to get outside. Now, all of the footage you've seen so far has been recorded on the default settings for the camera as I've received it. However, this is a pre-release and there has been some tweaks done to the settings for the release model compared to what I've got here. And I'm going to show you in a minute some more footage with the settings that I've been advised to use as well. We'll also compare that to the Micro V2 camera as well, which is the other native 4x3 camera for Hdzero. There is some complication around the way Hdzero actually transmits the image in 4x3. For instance, everything I've done has been in the 4x3 settings mode. However, that is stretched to 16:9 for transmission because that's how Hdzero works. And then it's squashed back to 4x3 for displaying on the goggles, but it's still recorded in 16:9 on the DVR. There are some settings that you can change this on in the VRX, which I will talk about in another video later. You've got the original settings and you've got the H-cut, V-cut, etc. However, for the recording that I've done, I've kept it the same to ensure that there's consistency between all of the footage. What we'll do now is compare this camera to the Micro V2, just so you've got an idea of how it looks compared to that camera, giving you an idea of what the comparison is actually like. Just one other thing I want to mention on the camera, you may want to add a small dab of silicone onto the MIPI connector on the back of the camera. In a few crashes, I did have it pop off a few times. Whilst it hasn't damaged the camera or caused any problem to the MIPI connector, it just causes a little bit of hassle in the field when you're trying to just put that back on because it's not always in the easiest of place. And a small amount of silicone or a small amount of adhesive will just hold that to make sure it stays on in the future. Now, before I finish this video, I was determined to try and get some better footage from this aircraft, or at least fix the problems with it for use with this system. Now, after burning out the motors, I'd ordered these, the new upgraded 1404s from Beta FPV, which are the 4500 kVs, highly recommended. And I have to say, after fitting them, there is a lot more power on the aircraft. However, it didn't help with the jittering issue. No matter what I did, no matter what I tuned it, it was still twitching all of the time. So in the end, I decided that it must be a problem with the gyro on the flight controller. Unfortunately, there's no black box on this controller, so I can't actually have a look at the logs. So I ripped it out, and all I actually had here, because I didn't have time to reorder, was a SpeedyBee F7 mini flight controller. So I ended up 3D printing a bracket and actually forcing that in there. It's done, it's inside, and I have to say, the aircraft finally flies properly, the first time ever. And this means I've been able to actually get out and take some proper footage. Now, it all didn't quite go to plan because you can see here, I've got a plaster on my finger, and that is because in the testing setting up this, I had a little bit of an incident and I've taken a bit of a chunk out the top of my finger. Yes, schoolboy error, you should always take the props off, but unfortunately, it's one of those things that happened. So again, it didn't give up without a fight, and I have the scars to prove it. Anyway, finally, I managed to jump out today, literally for a quick couple of flights. So here is the final bit of footage from this aircraft. I'm sorry, it's at the same location again. Today, it is windier though, as well, but I've also now got the camera on the proper settings as recommended by the guys at Hdzero, so the sharpness up as well as the color. So hopefully this will just give you a bit of a better idea of what this camera is capable of doing. Okay, so to share with you my thoughts on this new kit, well, there is a hell of a lot to like here. As I shown, I tested it first of all on the Beta FPV 95X, although I didn't get as much flight time on that as I would have liked, simply because I burnt out that motor. I was battling some real bad vibrations on that as well. I ended up having to do some modifications, but I got a bit of footage and it allowed me to get used to the camera. I was actually using the other Whoop VTX on that initially, and I was going to put the new VTX in, but I ended up burning the motor, which stopped me doing it. We then moved over to the Mobula 6, as you've seen, which really gave me the option of just being able to show how small a system you can get this digital kit into. From the VTX point of view, there's a lot to like here. Up to 200 milliwatts, 1 to 3S, it's got a retainer for the UFL connection, and it has smart audio as well. If you're going to use it in a bigger platform, you have the shielding option if weight isn't so much an issue, which gives some extra protection, but you can remove that if you want it to get down to the lightest possible level with that roughly 4.5 grams. Moving over to the camera, you may have noticed that there is some vignetting on the lens. That is normal. It is simply a reality of that ultra lightweight lens that has been installed, and that's what's allowed them to be able to get it down to 1.5 grams. You can though crop that out if you want to. You could simply record the DVR footage on the RX and then crop it later to remove that if you wanted to, because as I mentioned earlier, this camera does support both 4x3 and 16:9 modes, and the way Hdzero does record is that it always upscales it to 16:9 and then shrinks it back later, but the VRX will still record it in that wide view, allowing you to crop it in should you wish to. Overall, if you're looking to get yourself the lightest and smallest possible digital FPV system, right now there is nothing out there that comes close, and this kit is well worth a look. As I mentioned, pricing, it's about $99 for the full kit, but you will be able to get each part of it separately if you want to get it as well, and I will put a link to that in the Hdzero website. Overall, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great to see, again, Hdzero continue to develop, continue to push digital forward, and I'm really excited to see what else is going to be coming, especially with those Hdzero goggles around the corner as well. I just want to say a massive thank you to Carl for sending this to me to have a look at. It's been really great to be able to have a play with it. This isn't a size of aircraft I'm typically used to flying. However, it's been great to be able to move another aircraft into digital as well. And hopefully we're going to see some really interesting builds from people as this kit becomes available. If you found this video interesting, please do consider hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. If you'd like to support us to continue to make content like this, please do check out the links in the description to my Patreon as well as Buy Me a Coffee. It is only by using them am I able to keep making videos like this and hopefully provide you guys info that you might not always be able to get anywhere else. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.